I mean, the biggest question obviously is, can we build across issue areas a powerful enough movement to dismantle the war machine and build a new society? And I think we can, but obviously we're up against it at the moment because horrible policies, hate speech, attempts to dismantle our democracy are coming at a rapid pace. And I think it's intimidated and traumatized some people. But I think as we fight back, what we talk about in the book is, this isn't just a job for sort of the traditional peace movement. It touches everything that we want to do. So a lot of the movements that have some uh, visibility and traction in the U.S. are fighting militarism of one form or another. The militarization of the border, militarization of the police, the way the military is consuming our budget. Um, of course, the militarization of our foreign policy. In the environmental sphere, the Pentagon being the biggest institutional, creator of carbons, and also that our foreign policy that props up oil states who then continue to not only pump out oil, but in some cases undermine meetings like the global meetings on climate change. So, we need to work together, but we can't assume that people in parallel movements are just going to set aside their priority and make ours their the priority. So I think we need a lot more community building, a discussion, understanding of each other's issues. Because if I was working on nuclear weapons, I would argue it's an existential issue, or somebody working on climate change. But at a more local level, if you're afraid your kid's not going to make it to school without being shot, that's an existential issue. You can't put food on the table. That's an existential issue. So you can't really assume they're going to be put aside. But I think we could have a more robust network if we just listen to each other, build relationships, and have. And it's not just sort of analysis, but it's realizing that we're of a piece. We have common humanity, common goals, also common adversaries. Not just the corporate sector, but the way this government is cracking down on free speech, assembly, kidnapping people off the streets, basically try to intimidate us from expressing ourselves or our fundamental rights. So, that may be a slow process, but I think while we're doing that, we have to knock out the underpinnings of the MIC, which includes shifting the narrative, so people don't feel like, well, spending more is better. It's an insurance policy. The U.S. is, they're demonizing all these countries. And it's sort of like, well, would you rather have China run the world or the United States? All this kind of overlay makes it hard to get people to look at the reality of what this complex is doing, the damage to our democracy, to our survival. Um, and then I think we need an outlook and a spirit that makes people want to join us. I think if you're just the bearer of bad news, uh, people are like, yeah, I know it's bad out there. I don't want to think about that all the time. But I've seen in the civil rights movement, when people were singing freedom songs in jail or, street theater in Vietnam or groups like the Poor People's Campaign, which have actually a songbook on their webpage of sort of songs of liberation. All that's important because we don't know how long this is going to take. And frankly, we don't know if we're going to win the struggle. But if we're going to be in it together, despite the grim issues, I think we have to have a spirit of hope, some joy in the struggle, some feeling that, oh, yeah, I'm not just joining this group that's, making me look at all these terrible things. And frankly, whether you want to look at them or not, they're affecting your life and your family and your prospects going forward. So to me, putting those aside, well, it might seem like a kind of a move towards sanity is actually, I think, it just drives it underground, but it still affects people's moods, their outlook, the way they see the world, the way they see their prospects. And I think the younger generation, in particular, on the one hand, they've got these deadlines, climate sort of right in front of them. It's going to be their lifetime where the worst of this happens. On the other hand, a lot of them are quite ambitious about the kind of world we should build. They've got more of a sense of community. They talk about things like self-care in the midst of the movement. They're more intersectional. So those folks have to be encouraged and not just kind of seen as part of the mix, but groomed for leadership because I think we need new ideas, and I don't think people like myself should be, in the front lines. And of course, if these issues go on for a while, the generation coming up are going to be the ones to grapple with it. So it's a difficult thing, and of course we'll have to tackle the economic roots of all this. That communities feel like they can't cut back on this because there's jobs connected, but there's rarely talk about how there's diminishing returns from spending on weapons, about a third as many jobs as there were 30 years ago. They block our ability to do other things. I mean, if your scientists are tied up making weapons, they're not finding ways to fight climate change or protect public health or make more efficient infrastructure. So essentially that to save those relatively small number of jobs, we're sacrificing our ability to move forward and to build the economy of the future. So we have to break through that. And our colleague Miriam Pemberton has written about how one might do that. There's been some successful experiments in the past, but the thing that's been missing is public investment to sustain them. So it all comes back partly to the political fight in Washington, because in a lot of these issues, the public's with us.